It's time for the internet's premier restoration business podcast. Let's go with Gokul Padmanabhan, a thoughtful listen on creating your business legacy. Your leading source for selling your restoration business. And now your host and America's #1 restoration reseller with over $500 million in restoration businesses sold. Here's Gokul Padmanabhan.
Hey everybody, welcome to Let's Go. Today, I've been thinking about this a lot. We're going to do a whole summer series on squeezing the juice. So at home, I'm managing my budget. At business, we're managing our budget. Costs are going up all over the place. It has been going up for over a year. And I thought, what great way to add value than to, instead of constantly thinking about increasing revenue, can we tighten our belt? Can we squeeze more juice out of our business? Can we squeeze more profits out of every dollar of revenue coming in? And that's our whole summer series. So to kick off our Squeeze More Profits Out of Your Business series this summer is the one and only Phil Rosebrook from Business Mentors. Phil, welcome to the show.
All right. You can call me the juice, right?
I could call you the juice. Yes, and I have called you the juice. So welcome, man. Thanks for coming on here.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Now, Business Mentors needs no introduction. I mean, you guys have been around forever. Tee us up. I mean, you come with, you're one of the people I look up to as a person and even professionally. And we've had a lot of conversations. We talk pretty much 2-3 times a month. But give us a little bit of background for people who maybe that one person under the rock that doesn't know who you are.
Okay. Well, I've been in restoration for 35, going on my 36th year now. So been at this for a little while. I started out. I didn't grow up in restoration. My father bought a company when I started college, and so I worked. My adult life has been in restoration, and spent 10 years in the trenches, filling every role in a company. Literally every role except for bookkeeper and mold remediation. Back in the day, we called it demo. So yeah, wasn't on the mold crew, but had done a little bit of everything. And at the end of that, it was a family business. My father sold, and he went what I call a restoration road trip. He drove from Oregon to Michigan and back. And when he left, he had this premise that restorers needed someone to talk to who'd been in their shoes. And so when he got back, his premise was right, and he started Business Mentors in '97. This is we're in our 26th year as Business Mentor. So I started out 6 months after that, and 27-year-old bright-eyed, bushy-tailed consultant traveling around North America, helping restoration companies create a vision and a plan for where they wanted to go, and then pulling that plan off the shelf and walking them through, holding their hand in the process to execute and implement that plan in their business. So that's restoration is my sandbox. I'm a generalist. There's not much I haven't seen and done. And the cool thing about what I do now is every time I go to a new company, I put new things in my toolbox of great ideas. I'm like, okay, here's another one. This is fantastic. And so every company I work with, I just get a little better and get more information, and I'm able to move that forward in the next company.
Yeah, it's interesting how you gain knowledge, isn't it? So this whole series, let me dive right into it, right? Because I got ADHD, and I like these podcasts to be like inside of 10 minutes. I don't know. I was watching a podcast this morning, a real geeky subject on value investing. It was an hour and a half, and I was like, oh my gosh, like 4 minutes into it, I turned it off. But so, like I said in the intro, Phil, we're all tightening our belt. Expenses have been going up and up and up, and inflation, we're all encountering it, right? Yep. Whether it's at the pump, whether it's at home, in our business, commodity prices are going up. So I wanted to do this whole series on, how can we squeeze more juice out of our business, right? And folks, if you're listening to this is one part of four parts. This is episode 1 that we'll be doing with Phil. So I want to dive into episode 1, and let's talk about managing the numbers.
Yeah.
Correct? Because that's really where it starts. And I've always said, I tell it even to my staff, I say, accounting is what it is. It's accountability is accounting. And, So let's just dive into the financials and knowing your numbers and managing your numbers. What are the mistakes that people are making when it comes to the, looking at the numbers and managing them?
Sure. There's a whole bunch in that. The first thing, like you, when you go find a company and they want to sell, you realize most of them aren't saleable.
Yeah,
And I think
80%.
the first challenge of that is most people's numbers are not good, and they don't put the emphasis on that. They don't understand that everything builds back to the numbers and starts with the numbers and builds back to it.
Yeah.
So you can't tell where you're going without a roadmap, and you can't tell where you are without some sort of a benchmark to see how you're performing. And so you can't measure your employees' performance. You can't measure your job performance. You can't pay incentive compensation. You can't create a target to say we're going to improve if we don't know where we started. And so the first thing is in numbers, people don't really have a good understanding of the importance of that, and they don't have clarity on what those numbers say and what the story they're telling their business. And so, it goes, I mean, it's simple. I'm not going to get into the accounting stuff because I think that's a whole nother
We
subject.
can we can go into some of it deep, because what I try to do is I want our listeners to go deep into their business. You know what I mean? I mean, we don't have to geek out on numbers like we normally do, but we can go. Yeah, let's go where you want to go.
Sure. Okay. So let's start with some simple things. I mean, if you don't have accurate financials, I'm okay because I can put pieces together until we get from here to there. And the very first thing we have to have is good job costing numbers. And, I'll look at a P&L statement and I'll see, people put labor as a general category under expenses overhead. And I know they're not job costing any of their labor. They don't know what it costs them to get a job done. And so it's if you want to make an improvement on your job profitability, your gross profit margin, you have to really know where you're starting. You have to know where you are. You have to be able to track it during a job. And so maybe you're all just mitigation. And if you're just mitigation, it's okay. We can do a total cost per month of what our labor is and what our materials are. If you're doing a good job of it, you're going to know what your equipment rental costs are and all that other stuff. But if it's just labor, we either need to have a way to track that individual job, or at least on a very consistent basis, probably monthly basis, we can at least track our labor costs and figure out a gross margin for the mitigation part of it. But if we're doing reconstruction, we absolutely have to have our material, our labor, our subcontractors. We have to know what it costs to do the job, so we can set some targets, so we can track what we're doing, so we can see how to improve that. And so I think that's the starting place. Is we have to talk about some basic things. So I want to know we should be able to tell, even if we don't have a good profit and loss statement or balance sheet that we can track and manage, we need job costing. We need to know invoicing. We should know our signed jobs, like what is our sale number today. And then, best as we can and as soon as we can, we should be able to track our overhead. And if you don't have that, if we have our sales, we have our invoicing, our gross profit margin, or at least job cost numbers, we can start piecing things together to understand that. And you should know your overhead. You should really know what it costs to run your business and what your first dollar profit is from the sales that you're making. So so we put pieces together to get to where we want to be. But let's say you've got all that. We really need to.
Let's stop there for 1 second, because I
Yeah.
know there's a lot to unpack over here. So
Yeah.
we're not
Okay.
going to talk about revenue. We're talking about squeezing the juice out of your business. So the very
Yeah.
next line under revenue in your P&L is COGS, right? Cost of
Yep.
goods. Let's talk about that for a minute.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
How detailed does someone need to be to truly squeeze juice out of that one line item?
Yeah.
And if they don't have the discipline to do it, what do you see? Because you've helped like hundreds and hundreds of owners scale.
Yep.
Let's talk about it from like two different perspectives. Like, one, what kind of discipline do you need under cost of goods, right? What are the processes and maybe the GL accounts, high level? And then talk to us a little bit more about, if you don't have it, how much juice do you think people are leaving on the table?
Right. Okay. So I'm gonna start with
You know, I'm
something.
going to dive deep. You know that.
Yeah. Well, good. We'll dive deep. We'll do it 15 minutes at a time, so you can
I
get
know.
your
I understand. Yeah. Yeah.
coffee in and then get a little bit of Gokul and Phil, and then then answer some phone calls and come back and get the next session. So here is. Let's start with a takeaway. It's the most valuable lesson you can learn in this entire session, and this is we'll build from there. Okay, get your pencils out. A 5 percentage point increase and improvement in your gross profit, in your profitability on your jobs, will double your net profit margin. Double your net profit dollars. Sorry, not your margin. Double your net profit dollars. A 5-point improvement in your gross margin, your job profitability, will double your net profit dollars. Okay, so
now we could talk an hour on that one topic right there.
Yes, we could, and there is probably a lot there. But so if you understand that and you want to double your net profit, there's one of two ways to get there. You can double your revenue.
It'll be more than double your revenue, right? Because you got expenses against that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if we have the discipline to find our first 5 points, we're going to make a difference in our companies. So those 5 points, that there's a couple ways in tracking it. I mean, planning it, we can go through some easy exercises and things. But let's talk about you asked a question, so I want to answer that question. Yeah. The first thing is I want to track my revenue. It's not the cost of goods sold; it's my revenue numbers by where my sales come from. Is it growth? Is it mitigation, mold remediation, content, and reconstruction? We can add in 5 other things other than that. So some of those services are more profitable than the other ones. So a simple activity you could do is change the mix of work, where it comes from, and what type of work it is. And so if we had the discipline to do that, then we could change our margins simply by changing the type of work we do. Get rid of your construction and do all mitigation. You just doubled your profit, tripled your profit.
Correct.
So that's the first thing. The second thing is
we accidentally went on revenue really quick.
Yeah.
So let's talk about revenue mix, because not every dollar coming into your business is the same. Correct? That's what you're saying, right?
Yes.
Without using accounting language. Let's talk about that. Let's go through mold, content, and construction, reconstruction. Let's just use those 4.
Okay.
What are the margins that we see? What are the margins we're seeing in those 4 buckets?
Okay. So let's start with reconstruction. Reconstruction is it's like the biggest dollar amount that most companies are running, and a good produced gross profit margin. This is North America. There's some markets that are harder. There's some cities that are harder. But I would hope for a produced gross profit margin of somewhere between probably 36 and 42% on recon. And so that's the first place. We'll start there and say, okay, that is labor, materials, subcontractors, permits, engineering, whatever else. Knowing that my mechanicals are going to be lower margin, so I have a really heavy, maybe it's a heavy HVAC, electrical, plumbing, my margins are going to be lower. Okay, but that's the target we're aiming for on a general reconstruction job, whether it's 5,000 or 50,000, or even sometimes larger than that. On mitigation, drying houses out. The problem with this one is most people don't track their real numbers. But if we just said, okay, labor and materials, there's very few materials, and it's mostly labor, and it's mostly equipment rental. We never track our equipment rental. Our margin on those jobs should be north of 70, because we're not tracking our real costs, with capital costs, our air movers and dehumidifiers. But if you're putting that stuff in there, you're probably 65, 60, probably 60%, 55, 60 if you put in all your materials. But let's not confuse that. Just say our labor and materials, we should be making north of 70% on our mitigation jobs. Mold remediation, depends on the market, depends on the type of jobs, depends on a lot of stuff, but it should be over 55%. Contents cleaning, moving, storage. Most companies are hitting hitting over 50%, and I think a well-run contents company I see consistently hitting over 60 and over 65. Problem is most companies aren't well-run. They don't have enough contents volume running through to really get some economies of scale and get some efficiencies there. But at the same time, it's over 50, and if it's well-run and it's a substantial, probably over $750 $1 million a year division, it should be doing 60-65%.
So Okay, so we're not going to get to cost of goods, I don't think, in this episode, but let's go. This is all important. These are all,
Good.
like, I was looking for 5 nuggets and you dropped like 500 in the first 5 minutes. But anyway, let's go. Because you're going to lead me through all these like different tangents, but I think it's really important. So let's just stick with the revenue for this episode,
Okay.
okay? And
Okay.
folks who are listening, we will get to the next line item, cost of goods, in the next episode, all right? So look for that, drop in next week. Um, let's just talk about MIT. We'll start actually we'll start with the reconstruction, right? So you said somewhere around 36 to 42%. So let's talk about what are the mistakes people are making with margins and not squeezing juice out of reconstruction. Well, what are you seeing out there? Yeah.
Okay. So you keep talking about cost, and I keep talking about revenue because it's
That's okay. Let's go to revenue. Yeah, let's go to revenue and let's just say, okay, what are the good companies doing that are getting high margins and squeezing more profit out of every dollar of reconstruction revenue
okay.
that you're seeing out there and that you're consulting and you're helping with?
So the first one is most companies are leaving about 3 to 7% on the table because they don't put in their estimate. They don't know how to use the tools that they have. They don't know how to use Xactimate or Symbility or T&M or whatever it is to optimize their revenue on the job that they have. And so there's tools and resources, whether it's QA Assist from Dash or Ask Amy or the actionable insights program, which I remember what that was.
Mm-hmm.
But all of those programs help you find the little things. So Xactimate is a contingent program. It says if I have a door, that means I have a door hardware, I have door surround. If I have a water heater, I have 12 different items I can put in there. Am I capturing those things? There's software tools that are going to help us quickly audit and analyze our estimate to make sure we included what we should. And that's going to be our first 3 to 5%. It's going to be right there. We're going to find more revenue because most companies don't accurately capture what they should on estimate. And some of it's maybe just a peer review.
It's really funny, right? You said 3 to 5%. If somebody's doing, let's say, 2 million in reconstruction revenue, that's $100,000.
Yes.
And I'm just thinking about this, like, as we're talking about, like, do you know how much sales I got to go do to get $100,000 in pure profit?
It's cash to the bottom line when you put it in your estimate because it's found money. And that's crazy to me. You know, I work with a really large company and you get, they were working with Ask Amy, and Ask Amy gives you an audit at the end of it and says, here's what you were going to bill. Here's what we found you. And here's what you actually billed. They were really large, but it was $400,000 in found cash money at the end of that. I mean, that was crazy. They were doing over 30 million. So a large company, but just think about that. 4% is what they were finding consistently, estimate to estimate. And so that's the first thing. If you want to improve profitability, then take advantage of the money that's sitting right in front of you. And so you can, and then just simple peer reviews or things that internally you can catch those dollars.
What can someone do, Phil? I mean, I know we want to take, that's a nugget right there. I mean, making sure you're squeezing every dollar out of every job, right? I mean, that's what we're talking about. That's number one. What can someone do? I mean, training comes to mind, right? I mean, making sure like you're spending some money in getting your staff trained, right? I mean, what else can they do? Peer reviews, what else?
Well, so I would definitely look at the different resources that are out there. I like Ask Amy. They do a great job of really helping you audit your files, and it's a fee. You're going to pay per job. You're going to pay per upload, and they're going to send a report back and show you what money they found. The other one that I like is Actual Insight because it helps you build from while you're writing your estimate, saying you might consider these following items while you're writing it, and they help you capture it so you don't have to submit it to somebody and wait for an audit to come back. You're more accurately writing your estimates. So make the investment, learning what resources are out there, using software to make your estimating better, using the 3D walkthroughs on houses so you can go and once you leave the house, you didn't forget stuff. You can just say, okay, let me look at this again. Let me go walk through this virtually and be more accurate. So I've captured more because I can see more. So I think
I never thought of that. I'll be honest with you. You just blew my mind. I knew it was there, but I don't think about it that often, right? Like, how many jobs our friends, in our industry go to every day, um, especially even the residential guys, because they're doing a high volume of jobs, right?
Yep.
And I mean, imagine just leaving 2%, and it's so easy to do when you're going in and out of a job,
Yeah. Absolutely.
right?
Well, here's the cool thing. Let's do the math on your end of it. We're getting paid a
Yeah,
multiple on that, so it's that found money times whatever your multiple is, 3, 4, 5, 6, whatever it ends up being, and that's the beauty of it. So it's not just the lost money; it's that found money, it's that opportunity, it's how you drive value in your business.
yeah, yeah.
And frankly, we work really hard for that. Whether it's the $1 million in sales we're doing or the 5 million in sales we're doing, we work really hard for that. And you just think, these adjusters are beating us up. The clients are complaining. We've got grief everywhere. And to find that we had all this stuff sitting in our hands and these profit dollars slipped out through our fingers. That's a shame because we worked hard for where we are. And here's the first easy way we can find money and help drive profitability and value in our business.
So that's just point number one, folks. We just talked reconstruction. Okay, I mean that's a book. so
Yeah.
so let's go up the line. Let's go to content, right? And
Okay.
and you were talking about approximately, let's say, give or take 65%
Yep.
in profit margin. What tips can you give us there? Like, what are some of the mistakes that people are making? I mean, I see contents all over the place. I see 65%, I see 40%, I see 45%. But you'll have better insight into why that happens and how to fix it.
Yeah. I'd say there's a couple things that are really, really, uh, let's say, common. First one is breakage, loss. We just don't
Yeah,
have good systems. We haven't really taken care of. I mean, you think about it. You just took possession of somebody's most valuable things that they've accumulated over a lifetime. It's in your hands and
yeah,
in your possession, and you lose it, you break it, you drop it, and whatever it is, and that's tough because there was an emotional cost to the customer and a physical cost to you to fix and replace that. So that's the first one. The second one is I think we're moving stuff around a lot. There's lots of handling there. You grab it, you take it and you set it in your warehouse, and you move to the other side of your warehouse, and then you clean it, and then you move it, and you stack it, and then you got the next one coming in, and you just think about all that manipulation. You're not getting paid for all that. And then just not capturing what we did on the job, or not having a plan, not having a system for when you come in on a pack out, who does what, when, where, how, and then lay it out in a production line type mindset to say, okay, when I do my pack out, this is what I'm going to do, and then have targets for your cleaning crew. We're cleaning things to a new level, like it's brand spanking new,
yeah.
but we're not necessarily paid for that, or we're cleaning the wrong things. The customer doesn't want it in the first place, and we took it and we cleaned it and we sent them a bill for it, and then they start complaining about, well, it's scratched, it's dented, it's dinged, it's whatever. So I think that really trying to figure out what we want and then figure out how to systemize that process for packing out, and then set targets for our crew when they're cleaning in the warehouse. Or not everything's a pack out. I think profitability can be increased when we're just on the job site and cleaning on location and putting it aside, in the garage or somewhere else. So not everything's a pack out, but in today's world, everything became a pack out. And so
Correct.
I think that we can simplify our jobs to improve profitability. And
How,
then,
how do
I
you
think,
set targets for your employees, Phil? That's the first time I've heard. I mean, not the first time I've heard of it, but we haven't talked about that at all in a while. So how would someone do that?
what's that?
How do you set targets for your employees when it comes to content?
Well, so the first simple one might just be look and say, I we've got 6 hours to get this job done. Let's go knock it out. So we can do something as simple as that. More complex, we could come in and look and say we need to do $5 an hour, 10 boxes an hour, and we pack it out in our location. So it's setting a budget or a target, and then sharing with the employees, here's what I expect you to do, and then getting some buy-in and feedback, and then paying some incentive when we hit those targets. You have to have quality control on that, but once you've got quality control and you've got targets, then I think you're going to get the desired production and profitability you're looking for.
That's great. That's great. So let's hit the next one, Phil. Mold.
Yeah. So this one gets into, we're cleaning sort of unseen things, and
Correct.
making sure that we have a good system, good structure for what we're doing, that we're communicating well with the industrial hygienist, we're communicating with the client or whether it's homeowner or property manager, and making sure, and there's a lot of things that, one of them that hits our profitability is there's coverage limitations on a lot of these. So we need to understand
Correct.
what the coverage of what the payment is before we go in to figure out our costs. We set targets for how many hours it should take. And then we make sure that we're not redoing it because we didn't pass our clearance tests. And so defining a good, making sure we understand the protocol and then making sure we can hit our targets. I think all those things go into that process. So budgeting your time, budgeting your expectations. This job should take 4 people 2 days.
And again, communicating that to the employees, right? Really well.
Yep.
And then let's go to the last one that we talked about is mitigation, right? I mean, which is the highest profit margin of all the services that we offer.
Yeah.
And it's just amazing how when I talk to owners like you do across the country, they want to increase total revenue and they're so focused on it.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I mean, if I was running a restoration company today, I would probably be more focused on mitigation than reconstruction.
Yeah. Well, so is everyone else. Yeah. And so that makes it really hard. If it was easy, then everybody would be a mitigation company and just be great. But it's not. And so it comes into your strategic plan, your marketing, trying to figure out where the lead sources are. And every market's a little bit different. There's lots of services out there that teach you, whether it's SEO or working on your direct leads, your route marketing, working on commercial projects, working with plumbers, working with service providers. Yeah. There's a strategy you have to develop, and that's a day-long workshop. But I think you look and say, what's my strategy? What am I going to do? What exists in my market? How do I differentiate? And how do I do it better? And how do I stand out there so I can get more of this work? And then when you have to be consistent. You can't do it for a day. Except for SEO, probably is the only one that if you get a good person, it can go turn on and off. But in reality, it's much more complicated. Probably everywhere. The people who just do SEO would tell me that that was a foolish statement too. So, regardless, so
all right, let's pause there. We were going to talk about cost of goods, but we got talking about revenue, which is really important. So we went through reconstruction, content, mold mitigation, and how to squeeze more profit out of just your revenue line. So Phil, episode 1, we'll stop there for episode 1. Folks, how can people get a hold of you, Phil, if they want to continue this conversation?
Sure. They can hit me at my email, Phillip with 2 L's, PHILLIP @businessmentors.net, NET.net. Or they can call me, my home office number, 541-359-4117, 541-359-4117.
Hey, Phil, a lot of nuggets here just on one line item on the P&L. So thank you for episode 1 of 4. And again, folks, thanks for joining in to Let's Go. You can always catch us at www.rbacells.com. Look out for the next episode.
You've been listening to Let's Go with Gokul Padmanabhan, a thoughtful listen on creating your business legacy. Subscribe on your preferred podcast app so you don't miss an episode. And if you like what you're hearing, please rate and review. Thanks for listening.